Geek Out! Hey, welcome to another installment of Catching Up. I'm Sam.
I'm Chris.
I'm Jake.
This week we got Zack Kaplan back on the show for a third time. He's here to talk about the second volume of his Image Comics series Eclipse, which also published through Top Cow. It's out in comic book stores everywhere and on Comixology on Wednesday, August 9th. And he also gives a bit of a tease of his new Image Top Cow series, Port of Earth, which debuts in November. So without much further ado, let's give it to Zack. And joining us this week, pulling the hat trick, the old three-timer, we've got Zack Kaplan back on the show. He's talking about the second volume of Eclipse, which is out in comic book stores everywhere on Wednesday, August 9th. Also, we're going to talk a bit about his newly announced second Image Top Cow series, Port of Earth. That comes out in November. I'm sure we'll talk to Zack more about it, come November, but and other developments. Zack, thanks again for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. What do I get something for a three-timer? Or is this like a SNL five-timers club?
You get a signed copy of Beowulf.
I'll take it. I got it.
Yeah.
It's sitting right here. It looks fantastic.
That's not bad, actually. Yeah, it's a good idea.
We should develop some sort of thank you prize for. Have we had someone 5 times yet?
The closest is Alex DeCampi, who's been on 4.
Mm-hmm. All right, so when she comes on again, let's get her a fruit basket.
A
or something
signed copy
like
of "Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia."
I think it should be personalized when you hit 5, and with Alex DeCampi, it should be like
Sam
a Sam Peckinpah.
Maybe I'll give her my Alfredo Garcia Laserdisc that we still haven't watched.
Yeah. So with
now I got goals. I got goals.
Exactly.
I'm gonna have to work to get to 5 times for the show.
Yeah.
With Zack, it would probably be something, I'm assuming, poker related.
Oh.
I'll definitely take something poker related for sure.
I for no reason at all, I collect bicycle cards. I never use them, but whenever I see them, I'm like, oh, a nice deck of bicycle cards. So maybe I'll bequeath you my collection of bicycle. Or I have a set of poker chips that I've never used.
Are you planning on dying?
Yes.
You guys have any geek out swag or paraphernalia or anything like that? Have you guys done?
I wish we were that popular.
We had business cards for one hot minute.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I actually handed some out the first San Diego we ever went to. Mm-hmm. Our listenership did not increase.
Yeah.
But I did set up some interviews on that one. But
we're just popular enough that I'm like, oh man, we should come up with some merch, but not popular enough that I think that anyone would actually buy them. Maybe Zack.
Yeah.
He'll get a shirt.
Yeah.
You got to pick a craze like fidget spinners or pins or something that everyone buys just because they're fidget spinners or pins or something.
The WWE has fidget spinners.
By the time we finally get around to making fidget spinners, they'll be on to Super Beanie Babies or something.
That's true.
Super Beanie Babies.
We should
get
our own pop figures.
Oh yeah. Oh god. Yeah.
Our own pop. Yeah. They release Geek Out pop figures and. It's the first time nobody buys any of the exclusives. The Funko line in San Diego, everyone is actually walking to the booth. They're not doing that half walk run thing where they sway their bodies really fast.
Yeah.
And then the company goes under.
Yeah. We kill Funko. That's our mission statement here at Geek Out. Please give us figures. But but yeah, Zack. So. First off, thanks again, and
yes.
I'm glad.
Now 10 minutes into the interview.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, 4 we start. Yeah, but we just have been recording since the call started. But first off, I'm glad you're enjoying the Beowulf hardcover, and it was good to see. I love that. When we set up this interview, Zack and I basically had the Predator handshake, where we were just you son of a bitch,
nice.
And it was pretty
nice.
Manly. In the middle of this. But so with the second story arc, so the first story arc, now that we're just jumping right in, is really that's Bax's kind of call to arms. It stirs him from apathy. He's back on the force. This arc is really kind of his crisis of conscience. He's starting to have to make the big moral choices.
Yeah.
So
that's right.
I mean, with that said, and we're kind of juxtaposing that with Cielo, who kind of gets a dual narrative. She becomes a POV character as she kind of unravels more and more about her father's company and all that. Was the plan, even when this was just a miniseries, always to kind of branch into a dual narrative, Godfather 2 style?
Yeah. I mean, that was the plan were I to get the opportunity to do it, for sure. I mean, I always thought, I mean, my first arc with Top Cow is 4 issues. Each issue is a very tight 20 pages. So I didn't really have any room to play around with that. It was really focused purely on Bax and his story and his call to arms and this experience. But yeah, arc 2 comes around, and now I have the chance to actually go off and explore Cielo's character as well, and that had always been something I was really interested in doing. And yeah, I really wanted to look at what would happen. The setup is that she's got this killer after her in the first arc. What does that do to somebody? And her father is kind of using her as bait, and he's kind of got his ulterior motives, and he's kind of got some secrets. What does that do to her? And so I just thought it was really cool to kind of take her and see how would a character respond to all that, and how would that position her. And then Bax is kind of realized that he has the power to maybe affect the world. And he's kind of regained some of his hope at the end of the first arc. But how do you do that when there's this kind of shadowy corporation, and there's some secrets going on, and it seems that he doesn't know how to yet go his own way, and so he kind of finds himself part of the system, and that was kind of a lot of fun to explore. So yeah, the second arc was really cool for me to kind of go in both those directions, as you said.
So how do you think the 2 arcs kind of play off each other within the confines of the narrative? I mean, if anything, Cielo, if the first arc was Bax's call to arms, arc 2 is Cielo's.
Absolutely. And absolutely. This is her to call to arms. And I think both of them are realizing what sides of I don't know if it's the conflict, but what sides they're on, and what values they're going to hold on to as they move forward. And I think they have kind of a similar experiences, despite the fact that they're separated. And I knew I really had to separate them, because as long as Bax and Cielo were together, she was going to become very conditioned by his personality and what his choices were. And so the only way to truly challenge her was to put her on her own for a moment, and put her up really against her father, and make her kind of explore her relationship with her dad without Bax around. So that was kind of the framework for her story in 2.
So
yeah, it was a challenge to balance them, for sure. So, but I tried my best.
Well, I mean, you've even got not just with these, not just on a personal level and character-wise, you've got Cielo going deeper into New York City, hooking up with the underground,
Yes.
seeing all that. Meanwhile, again, juxtaposed against that, Bax leaves the city. He sees so if Cielo goes deeper, Bax goes broader. He goes out into the world. He finds the military base and all that. So are we going to start to see more of also something that was kind of lost in the shuffle of all the San Diego announcements? First off, congrats on Eclipse getting, greenlit for a 3rd arc. But is it true we're not going to see it until next year?
Yeah, we're not. So it's, basically right when we were finishing up arc 2 and setting out for what to do, Giovanni got the chance to do Batman Shadow team up. And he reached out to me and said, "Hey, it's a lifelong dream of mine to draw Batman." And I said, "Hey, listen, go do it." So we waited for a beat for him to do it, and then we got the full approval to do Volume 3, and of course he's off doing Batman. So we're just waiting a minute for him to finish that up, and then we'll get into Eclipse Volume 3. So it's probably not going to hit until maybe February, March, or something like that at the top of next year. So, but I'm hoping, it's looking promising. Like we may get to go beyond 3 arcs. So, what would be really nice is once we get back going, that we get to go all the way to a 4th arc and just keep the gas on and do 8 issues next year. That's my hope. But yeah, we do have to wait a little minute for it. So sorry, everybody.
You kind of get well, you've got another series in the interim to kind of tide over the Kaplan wait. You've got Port of Earth debuting this November.
Yes,
and you've got Andrea Moody, who, for our listeners at home that don't know, he had done Rebels over for Dark Horse. So how did
he's done a lot of stuff. He's done Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, Prometheus, Aliens. I think he did some X-Men and Batman around there. He's been doing comics for about 20 years. So he's got quite a bibliography and really cool artist. Very, very different style than Giovanni, and also different approach to it. So it's been really interesting to work with, my second artist, but he's great too. He's really a lot of fun, really gritty style. So it's been great. Yeah. And Port of Earth is about aliens coming to Earth, and everybody always looks at aliens blowing us up and or bringing like your total enlightenment. Like I'm thinking, Contact, Jodie Foster, or something like that. But I said, well, what would happen if aliens came with a business deal? And the business deal is to open up a port here on Earth, and that's what the series looks at.
Now, first off, are you going to keep it like Italian with your artists? Because
I know, right? It's a total coincidence. Everyone's going to be like, "How can you only work with Italian artists?" It's coincidental. Top Cow does a good job of keeping their eye out on great artists out there, and they had a list of a few artists, and Andrea's style just spoke to me for this. I wanted something that felt very, gritty and kind of textured, and Andrea really kind of has that style, and so it just was perfect for the piece, and it just was coincidence that it's another Italian artist. Basically, the world is telling me that I need to move to, or at least visit Italy. That's what I'm taking from it all.
Or maybe just get a Vespa for now.
Just a nice Chianti and some pasta. But so Italian artists. I know it's funny.
So, you're kind of staying within the realm of science fiction, and more than that, you're kind of, at least based on the opening issue of Port of Earth, you're kind of within the realm of law enforcement within science fiction. What kind of draws you to to writing those kind of stories?
Well, yeah, that's right. I guess it is another, in the sense. I think it's just, I find it very easy to explore. I like to explore thought-provoking science fiction premises. I like to say, well, what if the sun burned people alive? What if aliens came with a business deal? I like people to kind of go, oh, that's something that feels familiar, and I get it right away. But at the same time, I hadn't really thought about that particular sci-fi idea. So I like to come up with that. And I just think classic action thrillers lend themselves to it. It's just a very easy way in. You've got, the basic premise of the story in Port of Earth is you've got the two agents are heroes. Basically, aliens they come to visit our port, and they don't always stay at port like they're supposed to. They come into the cities, they cause trouble. They sometimes human beings react negatively to the aliens, and that causes trouble. So we formed the Earth Security Agency, and that's responsible for kind of keeping the peace and getting these aliens back to their ships safely without incident. And it follows two of the agents, and the agents, it's kind of a procedural component. They get a call, they come to investigate whatever's happened. If there's an alien on the loose, they have to respond, hunt him down, and bring him back. But I find that just coming up with like a clean kind of procedural action thriller style storyline, it just gives the story a structure that then allows me in the background to explore whatever themes or concepts I want to explore. So I guess it worked. In Eclipse I used the kind of killer on the loose, but Arc 2 kind of changed. I opened up Eclipse Arc 2 a little bit from that procedural structure, but I did start with it.
It was very Arc 2 is very almost like reconnaissance, man on a mission thing.
Yeah. There's still a mission. I still want there always to be to be some framework for, there's a mission at hand, and the mission's ultimately going to lead to some sort of decision at hand. I'm a fan of structured stories. I'm not. I don't have any like Royal Cities by Lemire in my back pocket where I'm just looking at like character and mood and feel and kind of loose. I'm a pretty structured writer, and I like structured stories, and I guess law enforcement's an easy way to get there sometimes. So that's where I focused on with this story too. But there's another. I mean, I like to complicate the stories. Like Port of Earth has an interview that's ongoing in the background of the entire series, and the interview's between a journalist who's interviewing the head of the ESA, and we're kind of slowly through that. I kind of think of that in my mind of the what's the Frost Nixon kind of I kind of think of that interview as like an ongoing Frost Nixon interview where you sense that this guy is hiding stuff, and she's trying to nail him basically, and it kind of will all kind of come together with the story of these agents at the very end of it. So I like that. I mean, that's a kind of similar thing that I did in Eclipse, right? With like the backstories, and then it all kind of comes together at the end. So I like to do that. I guess you know what? Thanks for pointing. Sam, you caught me. I didn't realize I was law enforcement. Now I got to go develop something that's not law enforcement-esque. But
firefighters are cool.
Firefighters are cool. Firefighters are awesome. But that's still kind of a procedural man on a mission, I guess.
Yeah,
but,
civil service. What? Oh God, I'm just spitballing because that's what we do. What if you kind of did something that was inspired, drawing from your time, like working like card games and casinos and that sort of thing?
I've always tried to think about cracking the poker angle, and I can't figure out for the life of me how to do it. I mean, poker is such a fascinating game to play, and I could talk about it for hours, and I could talk about how it there's so many lessons that relate to life in poker, but I can't figure out the story. It's because unless you're going to bring a story of addiction into it, just the act of playing poker, it's I don't know. I can't figure it out. I don't want to. I don't want to glossify like if you ever been to people out there who've gone to casinos to play poker, like if you in LA here and you've gone to like Hollywood Park or Commerce Casino or the Bike or anything like that, they're not exciting or sexy or cool. They're like racetracks. They're really, so I haven't been able to crack the poker story, but I would like to do a gangster story at some point. I'm trying to figure out my gangster story. That'd be a fun one to do.
Well, poker,
that's the other side. That's criminals, not instead of law enforcement. That'd be cool.
Well, I mean, poker is kind of, if you think about it, if you're talking framing devices, a hand of poker, you've got every issue would be a different card that's unveiled, like you would, or I guess 3 cards are unveiled in the flop, but it would be like the flop parts 1, parts 2, and parts 3. And then you would have like the river.
The turn in the river,
yeah.
The 5 issue, every card is an issue.
Yeah. Maybe you could have small big blinds as the prologue.
Yeah.
Or anti.
And then yeah. And then I take the pot at the end.
That's always the goal. Speaking of pots, by the way, I don't know how much detail you can go into this, but Eclipse got optioned for television.
Yes, and I'm gonna disappoint you. I cannot go into much. I don't think I can go into any more detail than that.
The detail is yes.
Yeah, it's crazy because it got optioned, and look, it's such a weird thing. It's like it's a no joke option too. Like when you hear about it, it's a pretty cool deal, but I can't say anything. And it's so weird. And they said Top Cow decided they wanted to say something at San Diego, and they mentioned that it had been optioned, but we actually can't say who or what yet. They're putting it all together, and So it's in development, and they wait for sometimes more details, and I just have to wait. So I'm sitting on the big secret, and all I can say is yes, it's been optioned for TV, and I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if it goes. It'd be pretty crazy to see if it actually ends up on TV. But I'm just waiting with the rest of you guys. But yeah, that was pretty cool.
That's got to be wild because it was around this time last year where we had you on the show for the first time, and I suppose I remember talking to you then saying that we were your first podcast ever, and I'm like, and he still agrees to do podcasts, and he still agrees to do podcasts with us.
Yeah,
but
I'm naive and foolish, and I know nothing, so I happy to do them.
That's how we get them. That's how we get them. But yeah, about around this time, the first issue hadn't even dropped yet. Fast forward a year later,
yes.
You've completed 2 arcs of Eclipse. It's been greenlit as an ongoing. You've been greenlit for a 3rd story arc. Your second ongoing comic book series, has been announced, and your first comic book series has been in some capacity optioned for television. So how much of a whirlwind has the past 365 days been?
It's been crazy. I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. I grew up reading comics. I always wanted to write a comic. I wanted to write a comic. I don't know that I understood what I was getting myself into in being a comic book writer. And I think I probably thought, I'm going to write a comic book. I'm going to sit down at my computer. I'm going to write the script. I'm going to give it to the artist. Maybe I'll collaborate a little bit, and that's it. And I won't do anything else. Like, it didn't occur to me any of the other facets that go into being a comic book creator in the world and cons and all this stuff. And yeah, it's been a whirlwind, but it's been awesome. It's an extremely rewarding experience. I'm extremely grateful. I'm a little humbled by the whole thing that Eclipse is. I'm humbled realizing how lucky I was to get an Image Top Cow book to begin with. And and then I'm humbled by the fact that it got a 2nd arc, and that it got a 3rd arc, and that it's been put in for TV, and that I got another one. And I just I'm very grateful. I'm just trying to write good comics and write good stories and do my best and give people who are willing to pick up my comic a good experience. So, but it's been a whirlwind. I also dove in like head first, not knowing. Like, I don't know how many cons you guys do, but I've done a ton of cons this year, a ton of signings this year. I also felt a tremendous amount of. Now I'm getting like really into it. I felt a tremendous amount of pressure to because I was a no name. Like, who's Zack Kaplan? Everyone knows Image, and Giovanni had been doing stuff for a year, but I was so new. So I felt this tremendous pressure to get out there and introduce myself to fans at different cons in different cities, to different shops, reach out to all these shops. And so I've been very busy, and it's been awesome, but it has been a total whirlwind. But it's been great.
Our local comic book store, and I think speaking to that outreach, has, they've obviously got posters for all the big series that are going on. There is a poster signed by you for Eclipse in that shop. So
what's the shop?
It is the Amazing Comic Shop in Fairfax, Virginia.
Yeah.
And so I think that outreach, that gets people talking. All publicity is good publicity, and it's not like you're doing bad publicity. It's not like you're like setting cats on fire. Yeah. But that would get people talking too.
If the sun is out, then yes, the cat will catch on fire.
Do we know
that's right?
We haven't seen. I don't think we've seen animals affected by the sun yet.
I have not burned any animals yet. I don't know if I have. Yeah, I don't know if I have the heart to do it. I guess I need to. It happens in Eclipse. Animals do burn alive. So, but I feel like animals are smarter than human beings. So I feel like the dog knows not to go outside.
Yeah.
I don't know why that is. How would the dog know? It's biological that the dog would think to go outside, but I feel like the dog knows. But that's a cool scene, now that we're saying it, that's a cool facet that the animal knows not to go outside in the deadly sun. How does it? I don't know. I just feel like that the animal knows that you don't do that.
It's funny because like when I was reading and reading the second arc, one of my cats was just like lying in the sun and just like loving it, and I was like, I feel like the cats would still, even though if they did burst into flames, they love the sun so much that they would just take it. They'd be like, yeah, this is just the way it is. Cats.
That they would just die.
Yeah, they'd be like, yeah, this is the ultimate sun thing for a cat, and or maybe they wouldn't be affected at all. They'd just become like super powerful. They turn into like Battle Cat.
The whole
from
other
He-Man.
premise, yeah, the cats that don't burn.
Mm-hmm.
You figured out the third arc.
Yeah, they become intelligent like Planet of the Apes.
Turns out it's something in the specific DNA of the human that causes them to erupt into flames.
Yeah.
But cats, they become super intelligent.
Become super intelligent.
Survive.
That's right.
I think we just helped you jump the shark.
We've seen albino humans.
Yeah.
We could see like albino sphinx cats.
That is, yeah.
I don't know what you'd do with them, but they'd be there.
Yeah.
I'm glad we're making progress, gentlemen. I'm glad
I'm right. I'm taking notes. I'm writing it all down.
Now, I remember that you had just a list of increasingly creative and devastating sun kills.
Yeah.
How big is? I mean, we're only 8 issues deep. How big is that list now?
I actually feel like I need to catch up. Like, as I'm working on the third arc right now, I'm like, I need to up the ante a little bit. I got a couple good ones in there for Volume 2. There was I think I'll spoil a little bit. There was the tank. The tank was a lot of fun.
Yes.
I was like, well, what if somebody is blowing up walls? That's kind of cool. I knew that I wanted one where there was just 2 men primally fighting to see which one was going to put the other one out into the sun, like just the primal feral fight there. There's a couple others in there that were cool, but yeah, the list is like, I did like how many ways could you kill somebody with the sun, and the list is like 50 deep, and so I've hardly scratched the surface. I mean, I can't imagine if the series goes that long. If it goes to TV, I'll basically just give the showrunners, I'll just be like, here's the list, have fun, add to it. But yeah, killing people with the sun is definitely something I need to do a lot more in the third arc, for sure.
If Telltale's looking to make another video game adaptation,
There you go.
Yeah.
Eclipse.
Yeah.
Now, Eclipse is set in New York. Very claustrophobic story, given the nature of killer sun, people living underground. Yeah. Is Port of Earth going to have a more expansive kind of feel to it? I mean, sky literally not. There are no limits.
No, it's also a pretty narrow story. In fact, one of the kind of references I use is End of Watch. You ever seen End of Watch with Jake Gyllenhaal and Michael Pena?
That's
the
amazing.
ride, the whole thing is a ride along with them, and short of some setup, and the story and the story does go everywhere for the setup of how we've gotten to this situation. But in terms of the core story, it's through the eyes of these 2 agents on this particular mission and their experience through this mission. And then the backdrop is what's going on with the port and the politics of the deal and everything in the background. So yeah, everybody always hears, I guess because my ideas are big, like Eclipse is a big idea. Port of Earth is a big idea. So people come and go, oh, so we get to see like everything. And I'm like, no, because what's also important to me is like the characters, like the 2 characters, these 2 agents in Port of Earth are really fascinating to me, and I really am having a great time exploring them, and because it's kind of like, so here's a little bit more about Port of Earth. It's like, I'm using the analogy of like Europeans coming to the New World, like when the Europeans first came and we met Native Americans. We didn't come with an army. We came and we were like, hey, let's do a little trading. We're going to set up a fort over here. Don't mind us. And there's a cohabitation, and there's business and there's trade. And then, of course, tensions slowly escalate because you've got different cultures with different expectations and different goals. So what happens to the men of the tribe who are experiencing this situation and watching their future slowly be threatened? How do they respond? And so there's this kind of different points of view that emerge. And so staying with the two characters and seeing who they are and how they feel about aliens being here on Earth and how they feel about their job, hunting down aliens and trying to protect the aliens too, not just the humans. And it's a very, I have a good time looking at those characters, and those characters are what really are going to drive the story. So it is kind of another claustrophobic or certainly focused look. It's not like sometimes we're everywhere in like backstory setup and what's happened with attacks here or there, but it's a pretty focused story.
I mean, in some ways that's what gets you to care, right? Because if it was just like, it's kind of like The Walking Dead versus, I mean, I guess there is no focusing on the characters caught in the middle of something that far beyond their comprehension works better than focusing on the epidemic itself. It's why you'll care more about Night of the Living Dead than, say, World War Z.
Right. We don't actually. I mean, Walking Dead is interesting because we're like with ordinary people dealing with this, and as much as we wonder what did the president do, and what did the Wall Street bankers do, and what did the CIA spies do, we don't actually. That's it's not as interesting as the school teacher and the local, the ordinary cop who really has no power of law enforcement anymore. I mean, these are more interesting things. So, these two agents are who we're going to care about, and they're tested on this experience, of course, and their viewpoints, their differing viewpoints on how to handle aliens and how to handle the tensions that are here unfold, and obviously it's going to, exacerbate the situation. There's fun action. There's badass aliens and cool alien action and alien weapons and fun stuff, but it is a character story, and it's a story that I want to make people think about perhaps a more realistic way in which aliens might come to Earth. I actually think about it. I actually think that I don't think aliens. I think aliens would come in business. It makes a lot of sense to me the more I think about it. Like why come with an army? Why not come with a deal? It's everything's about deals and collaboration in life. So why wouldn't aliens come in that same capacity?
Well, especially if they're looking to open up a port on the planet. They don't want to open it in a war zone or a scorched earth.
Yeah.
Yeah, but human beings have always operated that way. Whenever we want anything in the world, it's always business first. It's never just take first. We take when we can't make the deal. We go, okay, fine. If you're not going to deal with us, then we're going to take it. It's always an attempt at business first. There's no such thing as peace. Peace is business. Yeah. Peace, it's not war versus peace. It's war versus business. Is really the opposite. So it makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah.
How big do you see this opening arc for Port of Earth?
I want to do 8 issues, and then issue 8 will have a big kind of climactic moment that kind of resolves the procedural case at hand, and then we'll see. It's I have ideas about where I could go with the series, but definitely I think 8 issues feels feels, especially too because again the Top Cow model is these very tight 20-page um, issues. You know, like Image proper, they sometimes are doing 26, 28 pages, and they're sometimes going 6 issues deep. So, you know, there's kind of, I don't know, that seems to be the equivalent of like 8 20-page issues, kind of. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I mean, and you look at the big two. If a series are almost always guaranteed like 7 to 8 issues. That tends to be a good, I think, logistically. First off, you get 1 to 2 trades out of it, and second off, it's good to tell what the numbers and what the legs are on a series.
Yeah, I feel like we're all learning about how, like, well, I guess comics has kind of figured it out, but like, you know, like attention span, like suddenly TV seasons are like 10 episodes. Like that seems really standard, maybe 12. We all came to quickly realize that like 20, the old 20s or even like 15, this crazy. People didn't want to watch that much in a season. And in comics, I feel like 6 issues that are like 25, 26 pages or 8 issues that are 20 pages. There's just something about that attention span that feels right to me. So I'm looking at Port of Earth as like 8 issues that culminate. And then if, again, I don't take anything for granted. If people are digging it and they want more, I'll do more. If the series runs its course, then do something else.
I mean, there are some, to kind of tie it back to TV, there are some times where I'm watching, I don't know if I'm just spoiled at this point, where I'll be watching on something on Netflix that runs for like a 13-episode season.
Long.
Yeah, I'm like, that could just be a tight 10. You know, it doesn't have to go that entire way.
Mm-hmm.
I would much rather do that and have it resolve. I'm very wary of a slower pace. Like I read some things in comics where creators take a slow pace, and then I remind myself, and I'm like, oh, but this is this guy, so he can take a slow pace. But I really want to keep the pace on so that someone picks up one of my comics and they read fast, and then they just need to get to the next one, or if it's in a trade that the whole thing holds their attention. I don't. I get very wary of like a slow burn or anything like that. But I don't know. Maybe down the road I'll play with it more. But I'm very wary of like attention span.
To kind of speak to that point of things kind of coming next and, you know, seeing where the story goes, where do you see Volume 3 of Eclipse going? I mean, you've left both of the characters, both Bax and Cielo, at very pivotal moments in their lives.
Yeah, and Bax is coming back to the city, and he's going to find Cielo in a very different place emotionally, and they are going to reunite, and they're going to have some tough decisions to make. Cielo is really figured out some things about her father and her father's company, and that's really kind of informed where she's at in the story, and so they're going to have some choices to make. And then there's kind of one more mystery out there. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out with spoilers how much or how little to give away, but there's one more. The whole premise of there's also like, you know, people who can go outside in Eclipse, and there's one more mystery behind here that really has yet to be solved, and they're all going to have to get into that. And I think the battle lines have kind of been drawn. It's been a really interesting story because it's kind of this real mix of thriller, like, and I don't know how to describe it. Like, I don't know. I've had I feel like I'm dancing around in different subgenres of the thriller, because there's like there was the killer, and then there was kind of like a little bit of a factional component that I used to kind of to allow the characters to get where they needed to go. But it's all ultimately coming back to the fact that Cielo's father, Nick, is basically in charge of New York City, and he's got secrets and he's hiding stuff, and the fate of the city kind of depends on on some of that. And so that's really where it goes. I don't want to give too much away though. The whole series is built so much on secrets, and I think that the third arc will continue to reveal a lot of them. So, but I think it's finally like a culmination, because like volume 2, I separated Bax and Cielo, who are kind of the heart of the story, and Bax went off to explore beyond the city to find some answers. And so now that he's returning, I think it'll all get a lot dicier and a lot more tense, which will be fun to explore.
So to kind of like, I suppose, kind of sum it up. So Arc 2 saw divergences in narratives. Arc 3 is where they all kind of come together in a huge way.
Absolutely. Yeah. And my hope is to go to 16 with Eclipse and have it all kind of hit. So I would say if Arc 3 is about having them all come together in a big way, that will be setting up Arc 4, where it all has to settle itself out. So basically everything that would happen in 3 is just the fireworks, and then 4 will have to find some sort of resolution to it all. So, but yeah, 2 is definitely, the word is divergent for sure, and 3 is definitely about bringing it all back together. And then I got to kill a lot of people with the sun. That's the other thing I got to do on 3.
Metal. I mean, that certainly keeps us entertained every issue. It's always a matter of like, we know the sun's gonna fucking kill somebody.
Yeah. Well, it's awesome too, because like my dad was a tank commander for the M1 Abrams, so when that showed up, I was just like, yeah, that's awesome.
I mean, I don't know. There's something very thrilling about like Walking Dead when a zombie kills somebody in a fun and creative way, and Eclipse is no different. It's gotta. That's the point. The point is that while everybody is involved in their own conflicts, you still got a sun that'll burn you alive. So I got to kill some people with the sun. That's what I got to do. That's my job.
Well, you've answered that professional calling with great aplomb.
Oh, yes.
Well, Zach, something we ask everybody, as you're well aware at this point, I'm sure. What are you currently geeking out over?
Oh, man. What am I currently geeking out? Well, Game of Thrones is back. I'm hooked on that for sure. It's like I saw some people ragging on it, but I'm like, they're not disappointing me. I'm hooked. I'm excited to see Jon Snow and Daenerys, linking up, and I'm each week excited to see what happens next. What else am I geeking out on? Just my read pile in comics is so crazy. I'm really liking all things Donny Cates. I really enjoyed God Country, and I really am digging Redneck.
Did you pick up one of the Redneck shirts they had at the Skybound booth?
I did. Yeah. And it's awesome. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm digging that. Digging Seven to Eternity. I dig everything Rick Remender. I'm excited. I'm excited for the Blade Runner movie. That's I think the next movie. I get to the movie so rarely, so I'm excited to see that. I feel like TV. Yeah. I'm in a TV lull than Game of Thrones. What do you guys? Are you guys watching any TV or anything like that?
I am. I'm actually. You were talking about keeping a tight focus and everything, in terms of, and especially like things coming together and then resolving with Eclipse. I feel like that's what's going on with Game of Thrones this season. It's kind of like this big climactic battle for King's Landing, and then season 8, which I guess is going to be the last season, will just be the final fight with the White Walkers and the Whites and everything. But I agree. It's a shorter season. Next season's going to be even shorter. It's moving at a decent clip, like a faster clip than any other season, and I'm digging that.
Yeah, I mean, would I preferred a slower pace to experience more character that, because the show has been known to really explore the complexity of character, absolutely, I would have enjoyed a lot more. But I mean, how much more can you do? You know what I mean? You have to. Pacing is one of the most it's one of the most challenging questions, I feel like, as a writer. Like when you start off, like the first thing, like you're like format and structure, you're learning all these like basic things, and then you're like character and all this kind of stuff. But like the ninth level of storytelling is like pacing, like how fast or slow do you go? And I don't know. Game of Thrones, they I guess the network would have given them more, but they had to pick a number and go with it. So they picked 13, and they said, we can wrap it all up in 13. Let's go for it. Let's not outstare welcome. I got to appreciate that.
Also, filming in Iceland was becoming increasingly problematic because of, global warming.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
That's why this season got pushed back by like 4 months.
I guess they just didn't want to write in that the wall just evaporates due to global warming and solves, and then Jon Snow's like, hey, look at that, no more wall. That would have been that wouldn't have worked out too much.
Well, and I'm pretty sure this season ends with like I'm there's no spoilers here because I'm not speaking with any form of authority. But historically, the wall's been the one thing that's kept the rest of Westeros safe from White Walkers. I mean, what's his name says as much at the beginning of the season. So narratively speaking, that probably means the wall is going to come down at the end of the season.
I think you're right. But then I don't think that seasons, if we're just going to play around with this, and again, I don't have any information too, but let's geek out for a minute. If I were going to have the wall, if you're looking at like these pivotal battles, like, okay, we got the Battle of the Bastards and like these pivotal, if 7's going to end with the wall coming down, that means that 8's, the final battle is going to take place at King's Landing.
That makes, like Winterfell would be the first thing, as its name would suggest, to fall, and then they would just be fighting, a retreating battle against White Walkers until they finally get to King's Landing. Where they're up against Cersei, and now you're basically between Cersei and King's Landing and the White Walkers, and the humans have to find a way to, I don't know, work together or something. But I mean, part of me doesn't think that Cersei's going to last this season, because if the White Walkers become,
she may not.
Yeah,
she may not.
If Cersei's that big a threat,
then they're in King's Landing, forced to defend. I don't know. He keeps me on my toes. That's for sure. I love that I don't know where it's going, but then when it happens, it makes total sense to me. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe Cersei won't, but why don't you think she'll last? Because the bad guys always have to die. What if she lives?
Well, she's got more enemies than she can count. She's taken out Dorne and Highgarden. Spoilers for anyone who hasn't watched, like, at the time we're recording this. I guess at the time this thing posts, there'll be another episode in between, because we're putting this out the same day that Volume 2 comes out. But I think we're going to see... First off, if the White Walkers make themselves known to the rest of Westeros, everyone's going to be like, hey, petty squabbles aside, let's fight the ice zombies, like, that are coming to kill all of us. So I think, because I don't think, unless you think there's going to be a unified front between the Starks and the Lannisters at the very end as they take on. Also, I don't think all the dragons are going to survive this season, because the dragons have always been the easy answer against the Whites and the White Walkers, which, again, narratively speaking, means at least one of the three has to die.
Yeah, I think it's possible a dragon gets it for sure. I don't know if they'll all get it, but one could get it. They also like the out of the frying pan into the fire formula. Just when it seems like Daenerys is going to get killed by the slave rebellion, the dragon comes in, and then he's getting killed, so he drops her off right in the middle of the horde of the horse people, and then she wins them over. So I don't know. They do. It's never so easy. Every time they introduce like this, Cersei's got a weapon that will surely work against the dragons, I'm always suspicious of, like, that seems too streamlined. Is that really what's that? So then I don't know. I feel like Game of Thrones is very good with their surprises. So I always am like trying to figure out what the surprise is. Like that's why I'm like, will Cersei survive? Will Winterfell fall? Will I don't know. But I'm geeking out on that one for sure. But I can't. I'm excited for some new TV this fall to geek out on. I don't know what's coming, but
Stranger 2 of season.
Yeah,
things.
Stranger Things 2 for sure. Yes.
I season things is usually where a show really.
I like that I completely owned it. Like I said it wrong the first time. I was like, I'm just gonna say it wrong the second time.
I saw the stubbornness in your face. Like, no, I'm doing this.
Don't stop me.
So I mean, Jake, Chris, you guys watch now since Zach has very graciously asked, are you guys watching any television? Because I know you're not big on the GOT thing.
True. The thing that I've been really geeking out over, the at least like in terms of like new episodes, because I've been kind of binging, rewatching Psych recently. But like as far as like new to air, I've been geeking out pretty hardcore over this Blood Drive show on Sci-Fi.
What's that?
Oh, it's it's this beautiful I guess study in like grindhouse styles. Each episode is inspired by like a different style of like old grindhousey kind of movies, and it just follows these two kids they're like in their late 20s early 30s, but these two guys, or well, this guy and a gal, as they're in a cross country driving race. It's basically like that very short-lived TV show Drive, or the movie It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, or its remake. What was the remake called?
Rat Race.
Yeah.
But the vehicles have all been modified so that they run on human blood as opposed to gasoline or guzzling if you're in the Mad
that's
Max
very
world.
grindhouse. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just beautiful. Like I said, it's really like a love letter to the various genres of grindhouse pulp, and it didn't hurt that one of the leads is Alan Ritchson. For me, best known as
Aquaman from
no,
Smallville?
I was gonna bring that up.
I know. Yeah.
But no, for me, best known as Thad, the captain of the football team in Blue Mountain State, or yes, as the second Aquaman in Smallville. But it's great. He plays a cop that gets hoodwinked into participating in the race.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I think they're almost done with the series. It was like, I think they're on almost episode 10, and I don't think that it was. I think max it was like a 13 episode season that they got. Jake, what about
13 episodes. They couldn't do 10. God.
Yeah.
Well, it's not a Netflix show.
Yeah. I feel like Marvel Netflix kind of figured that out because The Defenders is only 8 episodes. Like I know everyone's always said with the Marvel stuff, like, oh, it could have been a really tight 10 instead of 13. So we'll see what happens with Defenders. But no, I mean, I haven't been watching TV that much. Like I think the most recent like new thing was Glow on Netflix.
Was that good?
Yeah,
good.
It's a lot of fun, and like Mark Maron, like love his podcast and stuff, but he gives in like a fucking great performance.
Yeah, I had
like,
no idea he could really act.
Yeah, because I mean he's played himself before, and I think he's even admitted like, yeah, I'm good at playing myself. And in the early episodes, you're like, oh, he's just playing Mark Maron, but then as the show goes on, he becomes this kind of really interesting character that's not just him being, Mark Maron. And then a great kind of like companion piece, if you watch the show or even before you watch the show, is they have a documentary on Netflix about the Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. That's really entertaining, but also really sad at the same time because, like with most wrestlers, like their lives don't really go how they plan. But kind of this kind of interesting story that I'm glad is getting more attention now. But that was a really kind of fun show. I think it was only 10 episodes too. That was like a nice
solid 10
episodes,
a tight 10.
30 minutes each. Was it 30 minutes? Yeah,
30
minutes each. 10 episodes. So that was fun.
And I looked it up, confirmed Blood Drive is 13 episodes long. Jake, you and Sam probably as well might be interested. The episode that just is airing tonight is episode 8, A Fistful of Blood.
Yeah.
So Western.
Fistful of blood.
Western themed.
A fistful of blood.
Yeah.
What a great line.
And then, oddly enough, episode 11 is called episode 9. Oh, wait, no. I'm sorry. I screwed up my Roman numerals. It's XI, so episode 11.
Okay.
Never mind.
'Cause that would have been really weird.
Right?
Yeah.
I was like, how quirky.
Yeah.
It could be like a Tarantino joint
Yeah.
where like the first chapter in Kill Bill is chapter 2.
Or like that comic book that we interviewed the guy on.
Oh, Chew?
Was it? Yeah, it was Chew, where like just halfway through the series, randomly they just jumped ahead
To issue 27.
Yeah.
And then when they collected it in trade, they collected it in like not in release order, but in actual chronological order.
Yeah.
So unless you were reading Chew on a month-to-month basis, you would have never noticed the time jump.
Huh. How interesting.
And because it wasn't written to be a time jump, it didn't really affect the story to read it.
Yeah, suddenly the
either.
main character's like in a coma in like issue 27, which is released like after issue like 19. You're just like, what the hell? And like according to Layman, he would get like calls from retailers basically being like, what the hell are you doing? And they're just like, it'll work itself out. But yeah, I guess that's what we're geeking out over, like TV wise.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, man.
Blows on my list, and I'll have to check out the first 10 episodes of Blood Drive. But
Yeah.
I don't think I'm going to give them 3. That's just 10 is.
I'll give them 10.
Yeah.
If they can't wrap up the story, fuck them. That's fair.
I'll
That's
hit
fair.
them up on Twitter and let them know.
How
I've agreed to
dare
watch
you.
the first 10 episodes. I hope you can wrap it up by then.
Well, Zach, before we let you back into the wilds of the City of Angels, do you have anything else you want to plug or tease?
Oh, that's my phone. No, you know what? It's Eclipse Volume 3 is coming next year, and Port of Earth is coming November, and I am cooking up some other things, but they're very very early, and so yeah, I guess that's all I got for now. But I'll definitely keep everybody out there aware of anything else coming for sure.
Sounds good, man. Well, thanks again for coming on. And again, Eclipse Volume 2 is out in comic book stores everywhere on Wednesday, August 9th. And the first issue of Port of Earth, and we'll probably post a review, an advanced review as we get close to it, comes out in November. Zach, thanks again for coming on the show. Pleasure as always.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure getting Mr. Kaplan on the show.
Yeah, he's
Always.
a great hang.
He is. I feel
Indeed.
like is he the first guest we've ever had that genuinely asked us what we were geeking out over way back when on his first occasion?
I
and
think
then
so.
Subsequent second and now third occasions.
Yeah.
And one of the few
Most
ones
people don't give a fuck.
one of the few ones that know us by name before we introduced ourselves to him.
Yeah. He actually listens to the show beforehand. Still agreed to come on.
Weird.
Yeah, we were his first podcast, like press podcast ever, and he still does those, and he still does them through us. So yeah, we've somehow, I don't know how, why, but we certainly appreciate him coming on.
I like to think it's our just commitment to professionalism
Of course.
and wieners and buns jokes.
Yes, absolutely. Everybody loves, ballpark Franks. Pride of the Yankees. That. You guys get into anything new?
I saw Dunkirk.
Oh.
It's pretty damn good. It's pretty damn amazing. For me, this has been a weird year for movies. Like, I've seen some movies that I thought were pretty good, but like, I don't know, I've just been in a funk, like with every movie I've seen.
I think for the longest time you said, unironically, your favorite film had been the Lego Batman movie.
Yeah, no, for real. And that's number 2 now. But like, that was one of the few, like, and granted, like, look, I'm not looking for every movie to be like, for me, like Sing Street level, where I just left the theater and I was like, that's exactly what I wanted. That was so fucking good. But this year, I mean, and not to sound like an asshole and rag on movies, but I don't know, I hadn't really felt it with movies this year, I kind of was like, yeah, it's pretty good. Or I thought it sucked.
The most egregious being for you Kong Skull Island?
Yeah,
or The Founder.
I was. I mean,
or were you the one that came out the least spiteful from that?
I mean, it's like I saw a thing recently. Like Sam had said on Twitter, like his least favorite movie he ever saw in theaters was The Founder. Like I wouldn't go that far. But I mean, Kong Skull Island for me, I just didn't like at all. Like I said, F plus. I give it the plus because the Kong stuff was cool. But the problem is, there's a whole movie that's not Kong that's not good. Anyway, I'm trying to say positive.
Yeah.
So that's not whatever.
So yeah, you had seen a lot of middling and
and like even the superhero movies, like I thought were fun, but like I got like really worried because I was like, man, like once I hit 30, do I just like hate every movie now? And I'm just like not like I'm just annoyed by everything. Like Stan from that South Park episode where you just see people literally talking shit out of their mouth, or just making fart noises. And I went to the Dunkirk and I was like still like really hyped. It's Christopher Nolan. It's World War II. It's got Tom Hardy and Harry and Harry Styles. And
was Denise excited about that?
She was. Yeah, we both turned to each other when he showed up and we're like, it's Harry.
Who's gonna marry Harry?
Yeah, me. No,
get out of here. Denise.
I mean, he's got. I think I don't know if I'm correct in this, but I'm pretty sure at one point he had the #1 movie in the world, #1 single, #1 album. So he's doing pretty well for himself.
Triple threat.
Yeah, and his
used to date Taylor Swift.
Yeah, I mean, we all three of us dated Taylor Swift at one point. But
I'm really the inspiration for a love story.
Yeah, I was blank space. She just stared at me and she's like, "What the fuck are you?" And then she smashed my Porsche with a golf club. But yeah. So anyway, so I went to the movie. I had a lot like riding on it. You were the inspiration for every other song on 1989.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Yeah.
And
basically just.
Are we out of the woods yet? Are we out of the woods yet?
I was the inspiration for the album art, actually.
Oh yes, the Polaroid. Okay. Yeah. And so I was like, there's a lot riding on this, and I was like, I don't know, like what if I go into this movie and I leave going, then what am I? And blank space. And so I went in and I convinced my mom, my dad, and my sister to go, which the last time we all did that was not Interstellar, was Inception, and the time before that was The Dark Knight. And so Christopher Nolan has brought the Bozic family together at least 3
and
times.
Spielberg has ripped them apart.
Yeah, at least 3 times. And so I went into the movie theater and I loved every second of it. I was completely blown away by it. Like I've given it about a week, I guess. It's probably my favorite Christopher Nolan movie.
How intense?
It's intense, man. The whole time you are clenched in there, and the basic story of 400,000 British, basically the entire British army, pushed back to the beaches of Dunkirk, 26 miles from home, and the Germans are just picking them off and moving closer and closer, and it's just intense. It's a very intense movie. So the moments of relief when you get few and far between, and the moments of hope are just powerful and very emotional. And like I like to say, I pulling a Kevin Smith here. Happy birthday by the time I'm recording this, by the way. A huge part of I think this podcast becoming a thing, at least for me, want to do a podcast. And but like he always likes to talk about, like in movies, there's like this is the greatest thing conceived by man and human ingenuity, whatever. There is a scene. There's a couple scenes, but there is one scene in particular in this that is like a one perfect shot and one perfect moment in a movie involving Tom Hardy. But it is one of those moments where I was watching the movie, and in my head I was like, if this plays out like this, and this will be my favorite moment of the entire year, and one of my favorite moments that I remember in movies in recent times. And it played out exactly like that, and it was so fucking like inspiring and rousing, and just like you just were like it's amazing. And so Dunkirk kind of like got me out of my funk with movies this year. And I told Sam earlier, like, if for me at least, if I see a movie on par with Dunkirk or better than Dunkirk, then I'm fucking damn lucky, because that is it is again, Christopher Nolan has just mastered the art of filmmaking. I think what makes him so great as a director is he's not complacent in just directing, but he wants to move forward the art of storytelling and change the way things are done, because this isn't a linear story. It takes place land, sea, and air, and at different times, but it still works, and it's not confusing at all. During the movie, he doesn't have to remind you with a little thing in the bottom that says land, sea, and air. It does it once in the beginning, and because you're either in the land, sea, or air. And it's kind of really kicked off this whole thing where the aerial dogfighting with the Spitfires and stuff. Really, I mean, the way that's shot, I would have loved just an entire movie in the cockpit with the RAF going against the Nazis, because that is some of the most intense stuff, because you are just in it. Very few. I mean, there's moments where you're outside of the plane as they're flying around, but when you're in there and they're calculating with those white chalk pencils, drawing quickly on the dashboard, doing math to figure out how much gas they have, it's pretty amazing. And I think the weight on their shoulders too, realizing that every moment the Germans are picking off more and more British soldiers, and the idea of them being if those 400,000 were lost, or a majority of those 400,000 were lost, you're looking at a different war. You're looking almost at the end of the war before it's even began, because this is 1940. America is not in the war yet.
Yeah, technically the Battle of Britain hasn't started
exactly, yet. Yeah. And so it's something that was kind of cool. I watched a thing with Kenneth Branagh on Stephen Colbert, and they talk about how it's something they still refer to as the Dunkirk spirit in the UK. That's something that still resonates with them, and that's pretty like I said, I get emotional about everything now. I like to always say the Tarzan. I told the fucking Tarzan trailer got me emotional, and the movie too. I thought the movie was actually pretty fun. It was like John Carter, people are like, it wasn't that great, but you watch it, it's fun.
It's another Edgar Rice Burroughs joint.
Yeah, I mean that actually makes perfect sense. I think John Carter's a little better, but Tarzan was a lot of fun. And Josh, if you're listening to this, I still owe you Red Robin. But it's like I said, there's at least 3 moments in this that are fucking tears, man. Because it's just it's about the best that humanity has to offer, because it's people that are not soldiers or sailors, people just everyday citizens coming to the aid of these soldiers and sailors and military men and women, and bringing them literally bringing them home. And it is just astounding. I mean, it's one of those movies that I don't know. It was just everything I wanted in a movie, and it was just so fantastically done. And the sad thing is, once it's over, you're like, man, I have to wait a while to another Christopher Nolan movie. But and I wonder what his next thing is. And this could be totally rumor mill, totally rumor mill. But I remember reading way back before Dunkirk came out that he was interested in George Washington, and I was like, dude, that'd be sweet.
From what I have read, and this is also kind of rumor mill, but if I remember correctly, before he even finished or started maybe The Dark Knight, he had completed a script, probably with his brother, John, because they do that a lot.
Yeah.
On a Howard Hughes biopic, but then right around that time was when Aviator came out, and they were like, well, we don't want to get caught in that.
Sure.
So I've heard rumor that he's thinking about revisiting that.
I would love that.
The Warren Beatty movie didn't throw him off. Rules Don't Apply that came out last year, where he's Howard Hughes.
Oh, really? I didn't even know about that.
Most people didn't either.
Oh, yeah. The Hoax is really good with Richard Gere about the hoax of the Howard Hughes will or whatever, which is actually pretty good. But no, I mean, The Aviator is fantastic. I mean, that's probably my favorite Martin Scorsese movie. But going with the aviation thing, Dunkirk really out of that movie really inspired me to really look more into the fighting spirit and attitude of the fighter pilot, not just in World War II. And I would love to see Christopher Nolan tackle the Howard Hughes, because he's one of the most fascinating people of the 20th century. I mean, one of the few guys I've read multiple biographies on, because I think he is just absolutely fascinating.
Way of the future.
The way of the future. Show him the blueprints.
Yeah.
Show him the blueprints.
Losing his shit.
Yeah, classic.
That's probably my favorite Scorsese. No, it's between. It's certainly my favorite DiCaprio performance, but I think my favorite DiCaprio Scorsese team up is probably Gangs of New York.
Oh, really? I like Gangs of New York a lot. I also really liked.
Again, not my favorite DiCaprio performance. That's most of that movie is because of fucking
Bill the Butcher.
Yeah.
They form a fist.
I like Wolf of Wall Street a lot too. I think that's the one I would have given. I mean, I would have given the Oscar for The Aviator because that's, I think, astounding. I mean, his descent into that and the tragedy of them not knowing really what he had, at that time, and his genius kind of falling apart. But also, I think Wolf of Wall Street's performance in that is fucking astounding. So, anyway, that is Dunkirk. Go see it, ladies and gents.
That's done. Anyway, Chris, you get anything?
Not really. I framed my fake Kevin Smith laserdiscs.
In honor of his birthday?
You know what? Perfect reasoning. Yeah, sure. It was totally for his birthday. Happy coincidence.
Mm-hmm.
I went with friend of the show, former co-host of Laserdicks, Ken, to see Spider-Man for a third time.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. Mostly just because...
was it his third time, too?
No, it was his second time. Right? And he wasn't even dressed up as Spider-Man this time. What the hell?
Oh, Ken.
But Ken and Maddie wanted to go see it, and I happened to be hanging out with Ken, and he was like, "You want to come with?" And I was like, "Sure." So it was fun. I still enjoyed it, which is nice. It's I gotta say, every time it gets to the scene where Peter is meeting up with Liz for homecoming, and Michael Keaton opens the door, like, even this late in the game, granted, probably, could have been some of these people first time seeing the movie, but like people were still like, oh shit.
Well, I remember like the atmosphere in the movie when I saw it, like when it's first revealed, everyone was like murmuring, like whispering to themselves, like well into the scene, like, oh yeah, the dad or something.
Yeah.
Vulture.
Like the rest of the movie is a good movie, but like I every time I've seen it, like that segment or starting right there, which is, I guess you would say, is like the official start of the third act, that the door opening.
Yeah.
That is like where that movie excels, like to like new great heights. As not just like a fun movie, but like a fucking good movie.
Dude, you should listen to Kevin Smith on his Fat Man on Batman talk about that. He's very similar with you. Like, he is like, that is one of the best, like comic, like not even comic book, just scenes between like people.
And the way that Tom Holland and Michael Keaton play off each other for that whole segment, like all the way until all the way until he drops drops him off at the school and lets Peter leave the car. From the opening of the door from the opening of the house door to the opening of the car door. That's probably, what is that, like maybe 15 minutes?
I mean, if that. That
makes the rest of the movie.
Well, yeah, I mean, it makes everything obviously more personal, and so much of Spider-Man and his villains are personal,
and it's just so well shot. Like when you see, what is it, Toombs? It's Toombs. Yeah. Adrian, when you see Toombs figure out that Peter is Spider-Man, and like it just happens to be perfectly timed with the red light, shining on his face. Like that's. Like, say what you will about the door opening and, Toombs is there behind the door, but like that just little 2 seconds, I'm just like,
it's one of those things.
Art film or the art school nerd boner just goes off.
Well, one of the things about that too is like it's one of those great moments when you go see like a movie with a lot of people in the theater, where you all. Everything is said without saying anything, and you all know it. Like you are all on the same page, and it's so much fun to just kind of sit there and be like, the fuck?
I remember when we saw it, somebody like in the row in front of me, or maybe the robot, somebody close to me was like, how is that possible? And I was like, well, the boy vulture finds the girl vulture.
In 2017, there's certain things that are okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ask Kurt Angle about it.
Mm.
That's a wrestling joke because it was just revealed that he has a fake black son. Or at least that's what this podcast that I listen to, Tights and Fights, call it. It's funny. Jason Jordan is Kurt Angle's son for no reason at all.
It's not the dumbest thing wrestling's
No,
ever
it
done.
is not by far. But it's just kind of like, oh, that's what this has been leading up to.
SummerSlam, baby. SummerSlam.
I'm excited.
I know Boom Studios is putting out a comic that we'll probably, if we wanted to, we could review it, I'm sure.
Ooh.
But
I need to keep up with their WWE comics.
I ran into the writer of the WWE comic at San Diego, Dennis Hopeless, and he was like, "Yeah, man, I'm Dennis Hopeless." I was like, "Oh, do you do Planet of the Apes for Boom?" And he's like, "Nah, I do WWE." And I was like, "Oh, we reviewed that first issue, right? Don't see War for the Planet of the Apes." Like, that was the extent of like that conversation. Jason Latour happened to be like witness to all that, and he's like, he is an ape. Yeah, good old Latour. I would love to get that guy back on the show too. We talked about it while I was in San Diego. Well, I might talk to actually the cool, and I think I mentioned this last week's episode. The coolest thing about San Diego, this year is we had done enough interviews or had enough interviews under our belt at that point, and I guess we had left enough of an impression where I could reference shit that happened on the show. And people would like act like talking to Amy Reeder. That was cool. And now we've just had her, talking to Josh Williamson and not having him scared off by Jake, or talking to
Josh Williamson.
talking to Zach. We had that Predator moment where we both like just do the full like flex arm grab.
You son of a bitch.
Manliest thing that happened at that show and in my life probably. But yeah. So, you guys got anything else to
What about you, Sam?
Oh, well,
Yeah, what are you currently geeking out over?
My favorite thing we do on the show is Sam asks us what we've been like doing, and then we ask Sam what he's been doing, and he goes, "Oh, like he has no idea."
Well,
that
like because you always catch him because he's like, "Hey, what have you guys been up to?" And then he starts to segue into something else.
Yeah,
and then you're like, "Whoa.
yeah. Hey,
you didn't say.
Hey. This better be fucking good though. Because we just killed so much time for this. This better be fucking amazing.
I didn't go to any
You gotta be fucking
any movies.
God damn it!
Jeez,
but a piece.
I picked up some albums.
Oh.
Hey, what'd you do? What'd you pick up?
I picked
Pick
up
it up.
The Glorious Burden by Iced Earth.
Ooh, I like that one. The Virginians are the chosen.
So that was one of them. I picked up Tusk by Fleetwood Mac, Wild Mood Swings by The Cure, Sandinista by The Clash. Yeah, it was because I get access to all of Heaven and Earth on Apple Music, and so I was like, I'm just going to get a.
What inspired The Glorious Burden? I'm curious. Other from the fact that it's a good album.
I was going for a little bit of everything, and I was like, what? I was looking at Iced Earth album covers.
Yeah.
And I was like, these are metal as hell. These are like the most metal. Like, if you think fucking just jaw-droppingly gorgeous album covers, like, Iced Earth is probably at the top of that list for me.
You got some good ones.
Yeah, I mean, Horror Show has got a great cover.
I love Horror Show. You know who drew the cover for Dark Saga? Because I asked the man this, and he fucking said he did.
Greg
Capullo.
Yeah.
Oh.
Though they can't directly reference Spawn.
They can't use character names, but I think Spawn is one of those things you can say Spawn as in like Spawn.
Like
As in
Spawn
the-
of Satan.
The
Yeah.
noun, not as the...
Yes, but you can't. They couldn't
Not
say
as the
Wanda.
noun.
Yeah, they couldn't say Wanda stuff. They say like one of the songs is called Violate, but it's
Yes.
not Violator.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So I mean that like I said, it's probably still my favorite Iced Earth album because it's like so fucking great. I mean, the cover's great. Question to Heaven is like one of my favorite songs they've ever done. I mean, it's just like it's so kind of like a heartbreaker. I love for them to like revisit. That'd be cool to like revisit Spawn because I mean, there's so much has gone on. I mean, when they did that album, it was like early on, very early into Spawn's existence.
Yeah, it's a 90s album.
Yeah. But anyway, sorry. Just
no, I mean that was
because
basically...
the Glorious Burden has got a lot going on in that front cover. You know?
Yeah, I mean, Glorious Burden is probably... It was not a hard leap to pick up the Glorious Burden. I like kind of concept albums, and I guess almost every single Iced Earth album is a concept album.
Pretty much, yeah.
But that particular concept, these like pivotal moments in history, not to mention it closes out with a trilogy of songs centering around the 3 days of the Battle of Gettysburg.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that was a very easy sell. Of course, Horror Show just being about like horror figures, I really enjoyed.
And then randomly, The Patriot.
Yes, yeah. I still can't get over the fact that there's a song.
Bloodfather.
Yeah. Well, there's a song on fucking Horror Show that's just called, and I think we've been over this on this, just called Phantom Opera Ghost.
Mm-hmm. And it's the best song on the entire album.
You don't like Jack?
Jack, I mean, like I said, those songs are great. I mean, when I used to
I think what the weakest one
when
is.
I actually used to like play guitar regularly, the one song that I would use as like a warm up to get your both hands kind of on the same fucking page was the riff to Wolf, because like that is Schaefer is like one of the best riff meisters in my opinion, and the riff to Wolf that'll get you fucking on the same page really quick. I think some of the best riffs he's ever done. You know, Damien is kind of just this like, you know, obviously like just that like super creepy, heavy kind of chanting, insane feel to it. But I think Dracula has my favorite Barlow vocals on that album.
Dracula's got a good one. I think
his
the Creature from the Black Lagoon track might be the weakest. It's either that or the Mummy track.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a couple there's a couple that I don't listen to that much on that album. But for me, you know, the Phantom Opera Ghost, it's funny because they're like, you know, we're going over the book. We're not doing the musical. Then, but a lot of the art in the album is very much Lon Chaney inspired. But I mean, the riffs in that are, I
love the screams
in
Jack.
Insane. Oh, yeah.
Because chick screaming because Jack the Ripper.
Because Jack the Ripper, and they did a tribute to the gods. They did some cool covers, cover Kiss and Maiden and stuff like that, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, Iced Earth is kind of what I love about Iced Earth is they're not too hardcore, where it's not like like black metal vocals necessarily.
Yeah, no shrieks.
Not all the time anyway. It's just melodic enough and just metal enough. It hits that sweet spot for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they got some good stuff, man.
Yeah,
cool. Well, I'm glad you picked that up.
Yeah.
You picked up both those, right? You said
I have 3 Iced Earth albums. I've got the Dark Saga, and Horror Show and the Glorious Burden. I don't have Framing Armageddon. People have been asking me about Framing Armageddon. I do not have that.
Pretty sweet.
Yeah. And I picked up Frost by Enslaved because sometimes I like the Scandinavian Viking metal.
Mm.
Yeah.
Who doesn't?
People.
Yeah. Touche.
But
you got me there.
But did you guys got anything else before we call it quits for the week?
Nah, I think
I'm gonna just breathe heavily into the mic and think.
Have a think.
No, I got nothing, man.
All right. Well, thanks again to Zack Kaplan.
Yes.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
True that.
You know, we always have a good time when he's on the show. You know, me and him have a good time when we talk Game of Thrones. Jake and Chris tolerate it, but
just like you guys tolerate my wrestling talk.
It's even. You know, I have a feeling that a future guest is going to be all about the wrestling, but I'll leave that to you to find out.
Mm-hmm.
So stay tuned. But again, that second volume of Eclipse comes out in comic book stores everywhere. I mean, the day this thing posts, Wednesday, August 9th. And again, Port of Earth slated for this November, so keep an eye out for that too. Both fantastic reads, and you know, I genuinely do love Zach's work. It's some good stuff, and it's entertaining stuff. Whether it's, you know, this world building with aliens or people getting like annihilated by the sun. So keep those sun kills coming, and yeah, thanks again. This has been another installment of Catching Up. I'm Sam.
I'm Chris.
I'm Jake.
Fried chicken.
Thank you very much.
Good night, Eric Bana.
This has been another Geek Out production. If you enjoyed what you heard, hey, you know, we've got a special episode every Friday. Of course, there's the usual Catching Up show every Wednesday. And you get book club episodes just about every Tuesday these days. Thanks for listening.